in its entirety. The idea of God speaks to some illiterate merchant warlord in Arabia, and he's able to write this down perfectly, and it contains the answers to all human. Don't waste my time. It's bullshit.
But you're saying the same about it.
Also, that God speaks. The Archangel Gabriel speaks only Arabic, it seems.
I just want to say, in retrospect, you were very civil, actually. I don't know what I was thinking.
Is this the same characterization of all religions?
Well, actually, no, because remember, Islam makes one special claim for itself. All religions claim to be revealed truth. They all are founded by divine revelation. But Islam rather dangerously says, ours is the last and final one. There can't be any more after this. This is God's last word. Now, that's straight away a temptation to violence and intolerance, and if you note, it's a temptation they seem quite willing to fall for.
Rabbi,
Second,
do you have any
I had another motive. Another motive, which is this. If you remember Dick Gregory, the older comrades here will, great black comedian and civil rights activist, when he came to write his memoir, he called it nigger.
Right.
It upset a lot of people, including his old mum, who called him and said, "Why are you doing this?" And he says, "Mama, every time you hear that word again, they're selling my book." So every Allahu Akbar reminds people that we're in a very serious struggle with a very depraved religion. And that help is available.
Friend, you give no quarter?
Look, he believes in the prophecy of Muhammad. I'm sorry to say, I think he's being, at best, conned. Yeah.
Our time is ticking down. With respect, if I may be the protocol guy, sorry.
Well, I want to go back to your answer to the question just before this, because I think, and particularly, I want to interrogate you, Rabbi, because you, in your earlier discussion and your answer to a couple of the questions, you seem to suggest that if there's something beyond the material, that's evidence for God, or it, and then on the question of whether there can be moral behavior, one can have a reason to act morally, you say that only, that requires the existence of God. If there's no if God doesn't exist, you don't believe in God, you don't have reasons to behave morally. But then I think in your answer, so I think that's where it was until your answer to the question before last, and at that point you seem to grant that the gentleman sitting to your left actually did have reasons to act morally, even though he does not believe in God.
Yes, that's right.
And I'm trying to figure out...
I'll explain. The difference is not whether people in their own minds have compelling reasons to act morally. The question is, if you don't believe in God, and you say, you know what, I'm going to... why would you do good in secret? As Balzac put it, perhaps only believers in God do good in secret. Now, obviously, that's not true, but you understand the ideology behind it, which is, if you don't believe that there's a universal moral code that comes from beyond us, and that human beings make up what's right and what's wrong, why is it that I, as a human being, can't decide this is right for me, even though I know it's going to be wrong for anyone else? In other words, the standard that arises only from human beings is easily broken by human beings, whereas if you think that goodness is woven into the fabric of the universe, which is what a believer says, then it's always wrong at all times, in all places, whether someone's watching or they're not watching, whether you're a believer or you're not a believer, that's always true, and that's the distinction I was trying to get at.
I was very struck, because this is the core question, so we might as well revisit it. I was very struck this week reading, I'm sure you saw it, the Pope's brother, Monsignor Georg Ratzinger, who runs the choir school in Regensburg. He's discovered recently there's been some unpleasantness at this school, of which he was the steward for about 20, 30 years. He said he didn't know about any of that, and sure he claims not to have taken any part in it, but he said he did used to smack the boys around quite a lot. He said until Bavarian law changed and made it illegal for teachers to hit children. Right. I thought, well, I don't want to be told anymore that without religious people we wouldn't know what morality was. He didn't know this until the secular law intervened and taught him how to behave. Now, wait. What is the church, what is the whole racket of the church in this? Protecting itself from. It's saying, they were all ordered, don't go near the courts, don't go near the police. We'll sort this out among ourselves. And they say they're the people who prevent us from succumbing to moral relativism. I'm not hearing it from them. I'm sorry, it's insulting to be talked to in that way. The great recent governor of this state, Mr. Romney, wants to be president. Okay, there's a constitutional issue here. Mormons are supposed to say that they're prophet, as they call their leader. His word is sovereign over anyone else's, including the Constitution of the United States. So Romney has to say, and finally people did force him to answer the question, well, do you think that about your prophet? He said, no, the Constitution takes precedence in all cases. Fine. So to the extent that he's an acceptable person, it's to the extent he's not a Mormon. The discipline of secularism is necessary to civilize these superstitions. I hope very few of you begin your day by thanking God that you're not a female or a goy.
Our time is
For
short.
example.
We're going to swing around just a little bit. Yes, back here.
Okay, this is for Mr. Wolpe. At the start of your talk, you said your belief was scientific, but you spent the rest of the talk backpedaling from that. But my real question is about free will. You say that you cannot get free will from a deterministic system. I can create a pseudo-random number generator that you cannot distinguish from randomness, no matter how long you look at it. It'll take
Right.
longer than the life of the universe.
Right.
So where did you get...
That gives you randomness. That doesn't give you intentional free will. And I never said
but
at the
if you
beginning.
give- but if
I
you
didn't
use
say at
that-
the beginning, by the way, that my belief was scientific. I
Okay,
said
but
it's
if you use
consistent.
that as an output, it's deterministic, but it gives you a random result that you can use
Right.
for free will. Now, where did your deity
no.
get free will, if it has it? If it doesn't have it, it's not much of a deity. If it does have free will, either it got it itself, why can't we do it, or some other deity gave your deity free will, which gives you infinite regress.
This
Well,
will be our
the-
last question, I'm afraid.
The answer is that there is no analogy between the deity and between human beings. Just like when someone says, who gave birth to God, that's a misconceiving of the religious concept of God, which is that God has always existed, and God isn't a biological creature. Therefore, God doesn't get free will the way human beings get free will. The objection and the problem with human beings getting free will is that if we're purely biological, how does that alchemical, metaphysical free will get into us? And a random generator doesn't give you free will, even if it gave you random numbers. That's quite different from actual choosing to do something or to do something else.
Well, who do you think in our society is winning this debate? The atheists, the new atheists, the religious? Where's the center of gravity going? And this will be the last question, I'm afraid.
I think a very large number of people don't, and they say this based on experience debating in a large number of churches and synagogues, go there for some of the reasons the rabbi gives. Community, Tocquevillian reasons, you might say. American communities, charities, self-help, often they run a school, this kind of thing. They don't really believe the holy books. They don't think they have been specially noticed by God or can expect any special favors from him. But they see, as it were, no harm in it. And there's a great deal of schism among those who do believe, enormous amount of schism. So when people say in opinion polls that, or when you read that 90% of Americans believe in the virgin birth and in Satan and so forth, I don't believe it at all. I don't believe it, and I don't believe people who had doubts about it would tell them to someone who rang them up in their kitchen on the telephone either. I think that underneath this there's a huge crust of doubt and a great resentment against American theocrats. If you wanted to know how to piss off an American Protestant in the South, say, oh, are you one of those Jerry Falwell people? They hate that. Rightly.
You think you're winning then?
I think that the supposed religious monolithic nature of America is grossly overstated. It doesn't describe reality. And it is certainly true, as one of the questioners mentioned, that the number of those who say, not that they're atheists, we're still a very small minority, but those who say that they have no faith and no allegiance to any church has doubled in the last few years. And that's according to a decent opinion survey, the Pew one, not a random poll.
Right. Rabbi, where do you see the center of gravity?
And it'll double again.
Toward you? Toward Christopher? Somewhere else?
I'm not, I don't have a sociological expertise. I can't tell you in terms of statistics where it's going. This is what I would say. I think that there are lots of reasons why organized religion has trouble. Many of them have been enumerated by Christopher. There are various other reasons as well. But I actually think that the impulse to piety and the sense of something greater than ourselves is deeply implanted in human beings and will never go away. And in that sense, although people will find different expressions for their religious belief, I feel quite confident that actually most people will continue to be religious in the sense of believing that in fact life isn't an empty howling wilderness, the way that Christopher describes it, but that there is something deep, lasting, eternal, meaningful about you, about those you love, and about the world that we live in.
Rabbi David Wolpe, Christopher Hitchens, your great audience, thank you very much.